Well, hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Learning the Basics of On-Plan Scheduling within Construction Online. This session, Scheduling 101, is the first part of a two-part series where we will be demonstrating how you can streamline your schedules to help keep your projects on track. I'm Ivy Cole, a technical writer here at UDA Technologies, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Carly Orlando, a senior success coordinator on our customer success team. Hi, everyone. If you're new to Construction Online is our award-winning project and financial management software built specifically for the construction industry. Over here, we're dedicated to helping construction firms of all sizes to keep their projects on time and within budget. Now, Carly, it comes no surprise that we have such a great list of participants for this session, as scheduling is one of our most popular and most widely used features within the platform. It was actually just mentioned in Capterra's 2025 shortlist for construction scheduling software. It is a perfect time for us to explore the benefits of OnPlan for our clients. So, would you mind telling everyone a little bit about the feature?
Yeah, so OnPlan Scheduling is Construction Online's complete scheduling platform directly within Construction Online, and it's designed to help you create, manage, and share your construction project schedules. So, what that means for you is that you would be able to visualize your task dependencies. You can clearly show tasks that must be completed in a specific order, helping to avoid bottlenecks and wasted times. But there's also a lot of other benefits that you get from scheduling that a lot of people don't think about. For example, you can go ahead and align team and trade schedules, reduce conflict, and ensure resource availability. All in all, having a good scheduling in Construction Online can help improve your client trust because you can provide updated and accurate timelines to them, which leads to more trust because they trust that you're not artificially creating delays or creating delays due to contractor negligence. So, having a solid schedule built in the system is a really valuable tool.
That's right, and by the end of this webinar, our goal for you is to grasp the basics of on-plan scheduling, learn how to build and manage those schedules, and gain confidence with predecessor relationships and scheduling automations within the system. Now remember, these are just the fundamentals. This is only the first part of that two-part series, and if you're looking for more advanced topics on scheduling, Scheduling 102, which takes place at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, September 25th. That is when we will be covering best practices and advanced schedule management tips, how to link to-dos to schedule tasks, managing delays and adjusting critical paths, and resource management and logging integration. We're so happy to have you join us today and hope you'll sign up for that next session.
All right, Ivy. So, as you can see here, we're already in the scheduling feature. So there's several different options for going in and creating schedules within Construction Online. So when we click this green Add New Schedule button, we are going to get a pop-up menu that tells us all the different ways that we can create schedules within the system. So we can either go in and start by creating a blank schedule, creating from a template, or importing from Microsoft Project. So, creating from blank, starting from there. When we're looking at schedules in Construction Online, if I've never built a schedule before in the system, or I have a unique job that I just want a blank slate to begin from, that's where you can go ahead and use that create blank schedule. That's going to be something that's totally empty that you can go in and build out as much as you want. You can add all of your different tasks and groups in there, and you're not pulling in any previous information. You can also go in and create from a template. So once you have a few schedules in Construction Online, you may notice that many of your jobs run the exact same or have very similar paths that you want them to take. For example, maybe all of your jobs are townhomes, and those all follow a specific schedule timeline or phase construction type. You can actually template those schedules out and pull those into other schedules, making it really easy to just constantly create copies that you can then go in and adjust as necessary. We also do have an option for importing from Microsoft Project. So when we're looking at importing from Microsoft Project, some of you may have heard that Microsoft is moving away from Microsoft Project and that they are in the process of switching over to Microsoft Planner. If you currently use Microsoft projects and you're interested in switching over to Construction Online, you can import files from Microsoft Project. Those are going to be .xml files, so you would simply open Microsoft Project up, export that as a .xml, and then you can import it here. When you do that, it'll copy over all of the resources, the tasks, and the groups that you have built in Microsoft Project, making it super simple to make that transition from that platform to just putting it all in Construction Online.
Okay, wow. It looks like we have some really great options for creating those schedules. Now, templates are a really popular tool within Construction Online. So let's say I have a schedule template from a schedule I created back in 2022. Can I go back and update what's included for this specific project?
Yeah, for sure. So when you're creating from a template in Construction Online, you would just hit the Create from a Template button, and when you hit Continue, it's going to allow you to choose which template you have. One really common question I get during my trainings as a success coordinator is how many templates can I have? And the great news is that they are completely unlimited. You can have as many schedule templates in there as you'd like. So if you do a lot of different types of work, or let's say we use that townhome example from earlier, if you are constantly building jobs that maybe are like similar but have just enough differences that you'd like to have multiple versions of it, you can go in and do that. So when you select it, you would just choose your template and it's going to pull up all the different options that you have in there. Once you select your template type, you can go in and name your schedule. Whenever you're naming your schedule, it's going to automatically populate with the name of the project and then add the word schedule to the end. You can go in and change that. So if you do not like that built-in scheduling name, you can just change that however you want. At the bottom, you would choose which elements from the template you want to include. So for example, if you want to include predecessors, but maybe you don't want to include the same resources from the template, you can just check which items you're wanting to include and then choose which start date that you want. So even if your template, like you said, Ivy, was built back in 2022, you would be able to easily update that to 2025 and just hit start, and that would go ahead and import all of your scheduling in there. Now, another option that we have is for people who are first getting started with Construction Online. One common thing that we experience is having difficulty, knowing where to begin with those schedules. So if you wanted to go ahead and you're working in your estimate and you wanted to pull over your estimate into a schedule, you can actually create a schedule directly from that estimate. You can choose which items you want to include, and then when you hit create, it will automatically generate that schedule for you. So it would pull in all of your tasks directly from your estimate.
Yes, and I know this option is especially great to help those who don't know which tasks and items to include get started on that right track. So now can we head into inputting groups and tasks within the schedule?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that you can do it. As you can see here in the schedule that I already have built out from that estimate, it went ahead and took all of my categories and subcategories in my estimate and created those as groups, and then pulled in the line items as individual tasks. So with Construction Online scheduling platform, you can go in and have multiple groups and subgroups. So here mine is broken out by phase. I can see all of my different phases and then subgroups within that. For example, demolition and site work that would go underneath that. So you can really get a lot of control. Now, when it comes to importing those, you can either go in and you can do this insert button and you can insert that task and group, and that would automatically import that item into the schedule.
So I see these options for inputting those tasks and all of the amazing things we can do once we've done that, but I know that there's other ways to do this. Are these options different than what's in the other toolbar we offer?
So the toolbars are very similar. So if you click up here in the upper right-hand corner, we have a brick icon. Now this is going to pull up a toolbar that will go in the bottom right-hand corner that has a lot of the same information that you will see up here at the top. Really, this is just dependent on individual workflow. Some people like having the ribbon at the top where they can go in. Other people would rather have something closer down to the schedule, so as they're scrolling, they can just keep going back to the same spot. That's up to you. You can even do it directly within the schedule itself. So if I'm looking at an item and let's say I wanted to insert a schedule task between structural demolition and roof and exterior envelope, I can just right click on that item and do new, and I can insert a task, a group, or a milestone directly into that schedule. Additionally, if I need to reorganize them or I want to put them in a different order, I can just highlight that schedule task and I can drag and drop it to rearrange those, or I can even go in and shift click and I can move multiple tasks at once. You can also go into the toolbars in either place and move those up or down. So if you wanted to reorganize it, that's another way you can do so.
Okay, so now that we have some tasks within our schedule, can we talk a little bit about updating start and end dates?
Yeah, so when we're looking at adding a schedule to Construction Online, it's going to automatically pull in the start date as the very first day that you establish when you're creating that. So regardless of if you're creating from an estimate or from a schedule, it's always or a schedule template, it's always going to have you pick that start date. Now, once you have that start date in, you'll notice that all of your tasks in the system for the most part are going to have start dates that are appropriate. Now, when it comes to updating the end date, I see probably the biggest concern that I see is that it can be really difficult to look at a calendar and count out how many days things are going to take. My little cheating tip or like little quick tip is to go in and you can actually just update the work days, which will automatically update those end dates. So if we're looking at something like design services, if I know that this is going to take roughly 10 days, I can type that into my workdays section and it's going to automatically update that work dates and that calendar dates to accommodate that end date. So if I know that something's taking 10 days, I can plug that in and get really easy updates on those end dates.
Okay, so you mentioned these calendar dates as well on the schedule. How are these going to be different than the work days?
Yeah, so work days are the days that your crew is actually at the job site. So let's say your company is only open Monday to Friday or Tuesday to Saturday. It's going to take a look at those dates, take everything that's not in those like work days that you've established and basically pull them out. So for example, something that may take 10 work days may only take 14 calendar days. So we can establish those work days within the system directly and go ahead and update those with like what days we're on the job site, what days we expect to have off for holidays, or anything customizable like that.
And how would we do that?
So, right here in the toolbar, if we go to it, we can go to the Set Work Days button. Now, here we can select which days we're on the job site. So, for example, if we usually work Tuesday to Saturday, or we have off Monday and Friday and work Tuesday through Thursday, Saturday through Sunday, you can do any combination of these work days that would go in. So, for example, if I want to say that we work on Saturdays, I can include that as a work day. I can also go in and do holidays. If in your country you have a set of federal holidays, you can go in and we have all of those uploaded automatically for you. So, for example, if you're in Canada, it will pull in all of Canada's national holidays. United States, it's going to pull in all of that. But you can go through and select which holidays you typically do not have work on. And when you save that, that's going to take them away from that work days list. So basically, what you're saying is that when you're building out your schedule, it's not going to try to include Easter Sunday as a day that is contributing to that schedule being completed. So you don't have any awkward conversations with clients where you're saying, hey, by the way, um, we have off Christmas and I accidentally scheduled us to work that day. So there's going to be a slight delay. You can also build custom holidays, so you can add custom dates where, hey, normally we don't work on July 3rd or July 5th. We have a 3-day holiday. You can add those in. Or if you plan on working on a Sunday that you wouldn't normally work on, you can add workday exceptions. So there's a lot of customization between saying when you're going to be on the job site and when you're not.
Okay, so I know that some settings within the platform affect the entire company account. When we're setting work days and calendar days, do these apply to all project schedules? How does that work?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So, no, when you're setting up these work days and holidays, these are going to be individual for each schedule because on certain days, you may have a client who really doesn't want you to come by the house on Fridays. Maybe they are working from home or something like that. You can go in and customize those work days for each individual schedule since each job is slightly different. Now, if that doesn't work for you and you are a person who always keeps consistent hours and you always know what those work days and holidays are going to be, When we talked about those schedule templates earlier, Ivy, you can actually go in and establish the work days and everything like that on the template itself. That way, when you're working out of the template, you can copy that over into your new schedule and not have to worry about setting that up individually each time.
Wow, that sounds great. So, what other options are there to control the schedule and to see what's on the schedule screen?
Yeah, so great question. So when we're looking at the schedule, you have tons of tools here, and sometimes what I see people do is they get a little bit of what I call visual overwhelm. There's a lot going on, they don't really know where to begin. So we'll start from the basics and go a little more advanced from there. So when we're looking at the schedule, we have it currently set in Gantt view. So if we look right here, we have Gantt view and list view. Gantt view is going to allow you to see the actual Gantt chart that you are building over here on the right, and you have your items list on the left. So this is all your scheduled tasks in your Gantt view. You can flip over to list view. One thing that I see a lot of my clients do is when they're originally building out their schedule, they'll leave it in list view and then go back and see the Gantt view later to make sure it's all lining up properly. So that's kind of the first thing. You have that Gantt view, list view, easy swap there. Other things you can do are you can go in and zoom out on that Gantt. So if we zoom in, you can see that we're going in and we're seeing individual days. And those work days you'll notice that are not work days, those are going to be slightly grayed out. So we know that anything that is there is going to contribute to the calendar days, but not this work days section. But we can zoom in to see kind of a closer 3 week look. I know a ton of contractors that I work with love that 3 week view, being able to go in and just kind of narrow that down. Or you can kind of zoom out, see it on a weekly basis or even on a monthly basis, and you'll notice that you can kind of get a lot more insight into it that way. So those are kind of your two basic view options. You can go in, Gantt view, list view, zoom in, zoom out, whatever you need to do there. But you do have a couple other controls as well. So when we're looking in the schedule, if we want to show hide certain columns, we can right click on those, show hide columns, and we can actually choose what we want to see on both the Gantt view and the list view. So for example, if you're using the list view for viewing your schedule, maybe you want to include information like the projected man hours, the calendar days, or the trade that's associated. But really all you want to see on the Gantt view is the start, end date, work days, predecessors. You can go in and do all of that through here, and that's going to allow you a lot more control over what that's looking like. One final option, and this is more of an advanced tool, if you go into the schedule settings here, you can also go in and do things like show data types in the Gantt chart. So if you look over to the right on mine, I have my task names and task dates. You can easily go in and control what you want to see. So if you wanted to easily see on the Gantt chart who's being assigned as a resource or what days those tasks run, you can go in and you can really control how you're viewing that on that Gantt chart. And then if you wanted to, you can click and drag that to be larger, zoom in, and it gives you just a lot more control than you might otherwise have.
Okay, so we've created our schedule, we've made the view look how we would like it to look. Could we dive into scheduling logic with predecessors now and link those tasks together?
Yeah, so that's actually kind of the biggest thing with scheduling that really sets Construction Online ahead. So if you've ever used a scheduling platform before, P6, Microsoft Project, you know that with schedules, sometimes you just need to build in logic. Construction Online, like those other platforms, have a predecessor logic built in that you can go in and customize. Ours is actually a little more powerful because you can link multiple predecessors to different schedule tasks, and you have a lot of different predecessor options that we can go over. So if we look at the schedule right here and we're looking at some of our tasks, if I am looking at task 9, for example, and I know that I cannot do this until task 8 has been completed, I can actually click on task 9 and type 8FS, and that's going to put the bare minimum requirement. So I know that I cannot start task 9 until task 8 has been finished. And you'll even see that on the Gantt chart here, you'll go ahead and see a little arrow that will click out and push that predecessor out. So what I usually recommend to my clients is when we're talking about building that schedule, Ivy, don't focus too much on the start and end date. As long as you can put in the work days, so let's say this is going to take 10 work days, and then this is going to take 12, you're automatically getting that start date updated. Once you put in the predecessor, that's going to update that start date, and you can really start to get a lot of control over that schedule, and it's going to automatically build that out for you step by step.
So what happens if I try to move a task that's connected by a predecessor before, that linkage? Like if I move it, if I say that task 8 has to finish before task 9 starts, but then I start task 9 before.
Yeah, so if you try to move task 9 to move before task 8 begins, you'll actually get a warning that'll say, hey, this change is going to violate that predecessor relationship. It'll give you the option to remove it, but this is just designed to be a warning. Hey, you already have a logical relationship set up here. Are you sure you want to violate that? So it's really beneficial once you get on a job site. I've seen so many clients who have just hundreds of scheduled tasks in the system, and it can get kind of confusing keeping up with all those predecessor relationships. So that's how you can avoid accidentally overriding them.
Okay, and so besides finish to start, what are other predecessor relationships that we can use and how do they function differently?
Yeah, so if we look here, I kind of used the finish to start relationship. That's the most common predecessor that we see people use in construction online. It's kind of your default, if you wanted to call that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the only predecessor that's available in the system. For example, we have 4 total predecessor relationships: finish, finish, start, 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 finish, finish, start. That can be really confusing, so let me break it down. Finish, finish means that task 9 cannot be finished until task 8 is also finished. This is usually great for concurrent tasks that need to finish around the same time. Let's say that task 10 requires both 8 and 9 to finish, and you kind of want to keep everything running smoothly. You may have 8 and 9 set as finish finish relationships so that you know those need to end around the same time. On the other hand, if they need to start around the same time, you have the start start relationship. You also have start finish, which is basically finish start in reverse. So if I have a relationship that is in as start finish, I'm saying that task 9 cannot start until task 8 has finished, or vice versa. So it's just kind of a different way to put it in, but I would say that the majority of what we see is that finish start relationship in the system.
Okay, thanks for breaking that down. I know we have a free scheduling resource, which we will be sending out with the follow-up email for this webinar, so be on the lookout. And speaking of scheduling questions that come up a lot, Carly, I've noticed many users asking about lag and lead time, especially since every task in a construction schedule can't begin the moment another finishes. Is that something that Construction Online can handle?
Yeah, so if we're looking at lag and lead time, you can absolutely go in and do that. And that's just going to build off the normal predecessor relationship you set. So if we're looking at task 8 and we're saying, hey, 9 cannot finish until task 8 finishes, we can go in and build that out. So right here, I have it set 8 finished to start. So when task 8 finishes, task 9 is going to start. To add additional predecessors, all I have to do is put a comma and I can add like 9 finish, finish, or whatever you wanted to do for your multiple predecessors. When it comes to adding lag and lead time, you would do something similar. So if I have 8 finish start, I can do +5, and you'll see that now when task 8 finishes, task 9 will start 5 days later. And you'll actually be able to see that pushed out on the Gantt chart. So if we're looking right here, it's going to push that out automatically for me to accommodate that lag and lead time. If I wanted to do the other one, I could just do a minus and it's going to push it forward for me. So I can see where those are getting updated. So now if I try to move this more than 5 days before that finishes, I'm going to get that notice that it's violating that predecessor relationship.
Okay, this all looks great for building a schedule, but what about when the project begins and things start to shift? Are there ways that we can further automate things?
Yeah, so when we're thinking about predecessor relationships in construction online, the biggest question that I would say I get in my time working with success clients is, okay, but what about automation? How can I go in and make my schedule flow smoothly? the biggest thing to keep in mind is that when we're looking at predecessor relationships, that is the prerequisite for the next task to start. So if I have a finished start, for example, let's look at task 10. If my task is 9, when 9 finishes, task 10 starts. That is not necessarily saying that as soon as 9 finishes, task 10 starts. It's just saying that 9 has to be finished in order for 10 to start. So it's just a requirement that has to be met. But let's say you are on a job site and you want those to be updated as soon as possible. As soon as a task starts, you want the next one going, boom, boom, boom. All you have to do is over in the left sidebar, when we're looking at it, there's this little icon right here. It looks like a little lightning bolt. You can click on that, and that's going to mark that task ASAP. So that means that if this task were to finish early, it's going to go ahead and push that predecessor forward so that now 10 is going to go ahead and be updated for 9. Same thing. So if 9 finishes, we're going to go ahead and have 8. That's going to match as soon as we possibly can based on that predecessor relationship. So ASAP is really good when you're trying to finish a job and there's no restrictions for finishing the job early. You may want to have everything marked ASAP so you can make sure you're staying on top of things.
Okay, so you mentioned marking everything as ASAP, but I see that we're doing it for specific tasks. Is there a way that we can do it for the entire schedule and all tasks included?
Yeah, so all you have to do is in this toolbar right here, again, you can do all of the same stuff through this brick icon. So if you go here, it's the toolbar here. You can hit this mark all tasks ASAP. It's this little clock. That's going to push everything forward. So now as long as a task is being completed, you are going in, the next one's starting. So the really great benefit here is when we were talking earlier about kind of that secret tip that I give people of just focusing on workdays and predecessors. If everything's marked ASAP, you don't really have to worry about setting those start dates at all because as long as you have it set ASAP, those start dates are going to automatically update to accommodate that predecessor relationship.
And what about this compressed schedule option next to the mark all as tasks as ASAP?
Yeah, so compressed schedule is very similar to mark all tasks ASAP, but it has kind of a different use case. So when we're thinking of the scheduling in Construction Online and we're thinking of ASAP, ASAP means that everything is going to happen as soon as possible. For some people and for some types of jobs, we know that that may not be the case, right? I'm going to use an example of a client that I have that's a government worker. They are only allowed to be on a job site on certain days, so they are not allowed to mark tasks ASAP. If they say they're going to be doing demolition between the 1st and the 5th, regardless of if they finish demolition on the 2nd, they cannot move forward with that next task until the 6th. So for those people, that's not great. But sometimes they may get something where it's like, hey, we see that you're really ahead of schedule. Let's go ahead and eliminate gaps. Compressed schedule is almost like marking everything as ASAP one time. It's going to update all task start dates to happen as soon as the predecessor relationship is met, but it's not going to do that continuously. So whereas mark ASAP is a continuous automation that you can set, compressing the schedule is a one-time automation to eliminate unnecessary gaps in the schedule and update all of the end or start dates to happen as soon as they possibly can.
Okay, so ASAP and compressed schedule are two options that are appearing to alter those start dates. Do we have any automations for the end dates?
Yeah, so if we're looking right here, back to that schedule settings section, we have something called the auto shift mode. And you can even see when we click on that settings tab, it's going to pop over here as a little toggle. Now, auto shift mode, basically what this is going to do is it's going to set the task end date to whatever day you're actually marking it complete. So for example, if we're looking at task 9, if I mark this complete today, it's going to automatically update that end date to whatever it is if auto shift mode is on. So for example, looking at task 8, you can see that task 9 before auto shift mode was turned on, it stayed at 10:06. With auto shift mode turned on, if I mark task 18 complete, it's going to automatically update the end date of that task from 10:07 to 9:18. And then you can see that because this task 9 is marked ASAP, it's going to go ahead and accommodate that. Same thing here. If I go in and mark this one, it's going to all update those end dates. If you violate too many predecessor relationships and AutoShift picks up on that, it will give you the option of going ahead and choosing how you want to accommodate those predecessor violations. So it's a really smart system, especially if guys are on the job site, they're using the mobile app marking task complete to make sure everybody's on the same page and we're constantly getting the most updated version of the schedule possible.
Okay, now we've covered building the schedule and managing schedule tasks. Is there a way we can track changes over time and see schedule shifts as the project progresses?
Yeah, so one of the tools that really sets Construction Online ahead of all of the other scheduling systems is our ability to build schedule baselines. And this is one of my very favorite features to show off Ivy. And I know that we have gotten tons of positive feedback on the knowledge base articles for the baselines. So if we scroll up in the schedule, we have this section up at the top where we have our schedule progress. We can see the total work days that have passed, what the original start date was, what the end date is, and we will also be able to see those here. So start date and end date. Now, when we are first working on a project, what I usually recommend is going in and setting a baseline. Baselines are kind of, you can almost considering taking it a snapshot of the schedule in time. So usually I recommend this when you're first working with the schedule. So you've built out your schedule for the first time, the job's about to start, you can create a baseline. So what that means is you can call this like original schedule. That's going to go ahead and it's going to document what the original start date and end date were. So as things are pushing out or taking longer, for example, let's say this task ends up taking way longer than we expected, we would be able to go and see what slippage we're experiencing. So as we're working through the job site, we can see what the original start and end dates were, and then we can see what it actually is turning into based off of any delays that we're getting. No job is going to run perfectly. That's just an unfortunate reality in construction. But baselines allows you to go in and help accommodate or document what's occurring. For example, if we look at it, you can even see kind of on there, I'm going to click on a different task to show, but there is a nice little shadow that shows the original baseline, and then we can see what it actually is. So this task was originally supposed to end when that shadow completed, but now here's where it's at. So it's giving us real-time view of where everything is. For example, if I push this one out, now we can even see that shadow better. It's showing where those tasks would have originally fallen.
That's exactly what I had in mind when I asked that question. And now that we know what baselines are and we talked about creating one for the original schedule, I know that in Construction Online, we allow clients to have multiple baselines. Could you kind of walk us through some other times that you might use a baseline?
Yeah, so other times that you may use a baseline are, for example, in my schedule, I have it as phase construction. Sometimes what I'll see people do is they will have their original baseline. They will also be able to go in and then at the beginning of phase 1 or phase 2, they can take an updated baseline. So basically, what that allows you to do is if we're working through a schedule on a job, when we are entering phase 1, maybe we don't really care about the slippage we're experiencing. We just want to get a more updated timeline to document. We can easily go in and hit the plus button to create another baseline. That's going to set it so I can call this, for example, phase 1. And I would be able to not only see, hey, this is my new updated start date and the new updated end date, but if I flip back and forth, I can start to see what's changing between each phase, and I can go in and even see that for individual groups. So, for example, mine is set up by phase. I can go in and see the slippage for phase 1, and it would go ahead and pull up. Or if I wanted to do that for the original, we can do it here. So I can see phase 1, we were 29 days behind there, but for the whole schedule, we actually ended up being 24 days. So we made up 5 days during that process. So it gives us a lot more control over seeing exactly what's occurring at a job site. Now, you may be thinking, what does that have to do with me? It's great to track slippage and all, but I don't see how this can be beneficial. Where this becomes the most beneficial thinking long term, and getting a return on investment in construction online. If you are constantly taking baselines on your projects from the beginning of the schedule and you are going back and comparing those, you will start to notice patterns. I cannot tell you, Ivy, how many clients I have come back who have said that by taking baselines on all their schedules, they can always see that demolition ends up taking 5 extra days. And then if demolition always takes 5 extra days, they can start accommodating that in future schedules that they build. And by accommodating that, they're giving their clients more accurate timelines or determining if it's a subcontractor problem. If my subcontractor is always taking 5 extra days, maybe we go with a different subcontractor. Maybe we go ahead and automatically build some buffer time in. But it really builds up that client trust because they can see that you're putting in the effort and knowing exactly what's going on the job site at any given time.
That's great, Carly. Thank you for sharing that with us.
So we've gone over today, we went over kind of creating those schedules, we've gone over building those schedule tasks out and the different predecessor relationships. We've also talked about baselines. So I kind of want to just do a quick review so everybody's kind of on the same page. When you're creating those schedules, the easiest way to do it is just to pick your start date, go in, and when you're updating the tasks, I usually like to recommend just working with those workdays, predecessors, because that's going to automatically start to kick out that end date for you. You're not having to think so much about, hey, how long is this going to take? Hey, counting it out on a calendar. It does all that automation for you. Additionally, you can go up and set those project predecessors so you can go in and build out entirely different logic. You can also go in and see those baselines to catch where the slippage is. So I know I gave you kind of a blank schedule that's not too great to look at because it's kind of a first time. So I also have a task in here or a project in here that's got a more built out schedule. So you can see this one. This is in our project 3532 Peace Road. You really have the ability to go in and you can document a lot of information. This is kind of more of a real world example. You can see all of the different tasks that you may have in here, where the original baseline was, and then you can see how those predecessor relationships can build out to give you a critical path. And you can even actually go in and highlight that critical path if you want to by navigating to the view and hitting that show critical path button. That's going to highlight that critical path in red for you. So you don't have to worry as much about, hey, what do I need to do? That critical path button in Construction Online is going to show you a throughway of your entire project. You just have to make sure you've got your predecessors built out properly and all your tasks in the correct order. Those are the biggest things that you will notice with the Construction Online scheduling. You have to put in the information properly in order to get the results that you want. So, Ivy, I think that that's most of what we were going to cover today. Tell us a little bit about what they can expect to see in Scheduling 102.
Of course, yeah. So, Scheduling 102, as we mentioned at the beginning, is going to cover those more advanced topics when it comes to scheduling. You will be learning all about best practices and schedule management tips, how to link your to-dos to schedule tasks, how to manage your delays and adjust critical paths, as we just talked about a little bit. And then also we'll go over resource management and logging integration. I want to give you a reminder that that will be on uh, Thursday, September 25th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And now that we're running out of time, I just want to remind you guys that we will also be sending out a free resource as a little refresher on scheduling. Um,
Also, if you do not have scheduling and this has been a really insightful thing for you and you think it's something that could help your business, I would highly recommend just reaching out to a product specialist. We can get you set up with either a trial of on-cost scheduling or help you even go in and get like a free trial of it so that you can go in and add that to your account, start to play with it and get familiar with it. So we are happy to answer any questions about it and we look forward to talking to you guys next week. If you had any questions that you submitted directly through the Q&A. We will be following up with you after. So we will send out emails. You can expect those from me along with the webinar recording after we go ahead and finish today. Additionally, we are sending out that free resource. It is going to be a full PDF guide to getting started with OnPlan scheduling, and it is going to include information like that cheat sheet for predecessors we talked about and everything else. So it was really great that you joined us for today. I'm really excited to really dive into some of the great tools that Construction Online can offer next week, and I really look forward to seeing everybody there. I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks for joining.